Hello, hello. Hi, all. Well, welcome, and happy Friday. For those of you that are new to joining me, welcome. Thank you for accepting my LinkedIn invite or my Facebook Messenger post and for joining us this Friday afternoon. Okay, and in case you're watching on the replay, thank you again for joining and listening in. My name is Angel Henry, and I am the ceiling breaker. Why? Because I wrote the book, Dents in the Ceiling, Tools Women and Allies Need to Break Through. So not only do I seek to support women, particularly women of color. Oh, excuse me, my hair is like doing something funky. Time for a hairdresser appointment. Not only do I seek to support women and particularly women of color that are trying to navigate some pretty non-inclusive workspaces, I am also relentlessly focused on supporting that middle management layer, that layer that has a series of small or a large amount of direct reports, and they're struggling to connect authentically and in a way that provides space and opportunity for their teams and their staff to be innovative, high performing, creative teams that are meant to do what they do best. Right. We have a lot of supervisors and managers out there that are doing the best they can with the tools that they are given, with the many constraints that they have from senior leadership, as well as those that they support in terms of supervisor experience. And it's a lot. It's a lot, y'all. So I personally have been there, and I love to come alongside um, those managers and give them the tools that they need, the language that they need in order to help connect again authentically with those that are in their care. With that, I have again these Friday lives where we just keep it real because it is filter free Friday, y'all. We have been buttoned up and have not been able to speak our truth Monday through Thursday. And today we drop the filter and we tell the truth. So today we're going to drop the filter and tell the truth about diversity suppliership. And at the end, it's going to be a nice little segue into May, which is going to be a whole series every Friday around mental health in the workplace. Okay, so diversity suppliership. We're going to round out this and talk about the real deal. So here's the real deal for those of you that don't know, especially those that are sitting in the HR and the DE and I seat. You're probably scratching your head, especially if you're new to that role. You're like, why is it so hard to get training? Why is it so hard to bring in speakers like yourself, Angel, or to get the programming that we need for our people? This is needed. We've seen it in the ENPS scores, the employee net promoter scores, or the employee surveys, the voice of the employee, the voice of the customer. We got all the surveys and all the data that says we need to do XYZ, but we can't do it. We know the exact vendor, we know the exact contractor that we want to bring in to help us with this problem, but it is like pulling teeth. What's going on here? Okay, so let me break this down for you. If you don't know, now you know. You're good. We typically, the larger the organization, so let's bucket this up into small, medium, and large. We'll do t-shirt size, okay? So small organizations, those that are, under a few hundred people, medium-sized organizations will say a few hundred to, thousand, and then large are going to be obviously many thousands of people work there, your large conglomerates. They have multiple locations and they're most likely even global. Okay, so small, medium, and large. Okay, the larger the organization, the more likely that they have set their budget in advance, well in advance. Okay, I've worked with organizations that are looking at the 2 to 3 year horizon. But mostly those budgets get firmer and firmer and firmer the closer and closer and closer you get to the end of their budget cycle. And you need to know when their budget cycle is, right? You need to know if they are a January through December budget cycle, or if they are June to July. Well, those are the two most common. Uh, so you need to know what your budget cycle is, which means you need to know when you can get in. When can you get in? So you have to be thinking ahead and planning ahead. So if you did go to that conference just this past, let's say March, and you met the perfect speaker, you met the perfect person to come in, you met the perfect company to bring in to help you with your problem, whatever that problem is that you're trying to solve. You might very well be looking at having to have the conversation around Q3, um, maybe the beginning of Q4, as late as Q4, depending on how late the managers get together. But you're probably, your safe bet is to have all your ducks in a row and have everything together from that vendor around August, early September timeframe, so that they can get into the budget so that you can then bring them in. In this case, it would be, the next year, 2024. So again, know your budget cycle, and when you meet that contractor, that individual, you're going to have to feed them some information. So that means you're going to have to do your research to find out what it is that your organization needs in order to bring in a new person. And let me just say, new vendor relationships, not the easiest. Okay, they're the ones that are going to be scrutinized the most, and they're the ones that are going to have the most upfront paperwork. And let me just say, the larger the organization, the less and less friendly they are to small businesses, especially to solopreneurships. Why is that the case? These large organizations are set up to work with other large companies and large vendors, right? They're on a subscription model. They're on a net 90, 100, maybe even longer pay cycle. Whereas folks like me, I don't want to get paid after 120 days. I want to get paid before the gig or at the time of the talk, right? At the very latest, the day that I speak, I want check in hand, or I want it in direct deposit in my account. Large organizations don't work that way, right? So now you've got some combating here to do with contract negotiation, payout, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So the small business is actually kind of at the whim. They're going to have to bend and contort and be flexible with what the larger organization is requiring of them. And it goes way beyond just turning in your W-9 paperwork. Okay. We're asking small organizations to be insured. They're asking small or even smaller preneur businesses to have workman's comp, for example. A lot of compliancy issues that you would need to have when you're dealing with another large vendor. But when you're dealing with just one person, it's like, well, no, I don't have a 90-day requirement for purging information about your company because it's just me, right? And all I'm doing is just this one little simple contract, or maybe I'm coaching your employees over the next six months for 1 to 2 hours a month, right? Pretty simple, straightforward. And these large organizations just don't handle simple, straightforward very well for small businesses and for solopreneurs. So right there is a steep, significant barrier to entry. So it was just by happenstance, by coincidence, I happened to be having breakfast with a lady today, and she asked, well, what's the workaround? How do we get around that? I've learned it's really behooves you to what you call hook up or have a limited partnership agreement or some sort of agreement with an organization that's already in. So if you are in HR, DE&I, and you really want to bring in a smaller vendor or organization, if they're open to partnering with a company that you already have in place, a company that's already in your vendor management system, they've already been vetted and approved, and they've already been used a couple of times, you might want to make that connection and that introduction to see if they are willing to do a limited partnership, which just means, hey, for just this stint, whether it's time bound or whether it's activity bound or project bound, just for this time period or for just this initiative, we're gonna work together and this is the payment, right? If it's just a pass through, then they're probably going to take off 15-20% off the top, and then the rest is going to go to the small vendor or the solopreneur. That's a workaround. That is a way to get in that vendor quicker, faster, and to create a bit of a creative way, a workaround, right? So that's just a way. What I tell solopreneurs and other smaller organizations, because again, I've been in corporate, I've seen both ends of it. Just be prepared that the cycle for larger companies is going to be, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get through. So if you are focused on making revenue and making it quickly, your best bet is to really focus on smaller companies or mid-sized companies. Okay, that's the cycle time is shorter. And here's another little key. One thing you have to ask and find out is the person that you're dealing with, what is their, at some point in this conversation and in this relationship building, you're going to have to find out what their signatory level is, if they even have one. Again, what I found is smaller organizations, sometimes there tends to be bigger signing levels at people that have lower titles or lower positions. Just because there's just less hoops to jump through. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes that's the opposite. Sometimes they have very little signing power and everything goes up through one person, right? I was working with an organization where everything went to this one VP. I think she was acting as the controller and probably the CFO, and everything else. Anything budget or anything money related always went to her, regardless of what it was. I mean, it could have been literally anything over $1,000 went to her. I thought that was pretty interesting. But again, it could be the opposite. It could be the opposite, where somebody that has a lower level title, like a senior manager, can sign off on something that's, as much as $5,000 or more, which again might be perfect for what you're offering in terms of your service and your package. Now, with all that being said, there's a lot of nuances that you need to know in terms of when you're working with an organization and trying to be that preferred supplier or that vendor, that person offering training, coaching, services, talks, etc. Now, here's the key. Here's the kicker, right? This is like a double-edged sword. Oh my goodness. Very often, especially those of us that are in the support space in terms of training and offering help to employees or their managers, or in terms of coaching, training, etc. Very often we will find someone that wants to bring us in and they are absolutely passionate. They're like, you are the answer to our problem. And you're like, great, here's the agreement, let's go. And they're like, oh, but wait, I've got to go through literally, sometimes, not exaggeration, 5 or 6 layers to get to the person who has the authority and the accountability and the signatory responsibility that can actually literally sign off and approve payment. And at any point in time that you are navigating through any of these people, they could say no, they could stop you pretty easily, right? By just saying, oh, sorry, it's not in the budget, or I'm not really understanding how this is going to fit or how this is going to solve our problem. And then you've got to kind of go through the whole spiel all over again. So there's ways to shortcut that for sure, in terms of when you're having a conversation. But I will say to my HR and my DE&I folks that are out there listening, if you are that person, if you are that individual that you're like, I went to a conference, I heard somebody speak, I met somebody, they were referred me, this person is the answer to our problems, I need to bring them in, you're going to have to be realistic about the amount of social and political capital that you have in order to navigate if you don't have the signatory authority and accountability to sign. If that resides somewhere several layers above you, please be respectful and tell, right, the person that you wanting to bring in to say, hey, we're in this for the long haul. I'm with you. I'm behind you. I'm a champion of your work. I think you would be ideal fit. However, we're going to have to work together to make this happen, and we're gonna have some hills to climb in order to make this work and for this to sign off. So do your research internally before you start bringing on vendors or doing any sort of meet and greet or anything like that, because it helps to set expectations, and it'll ultimately it helps you, right, to achieve what you're looking for. Now, I want to end with a nice segue into May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. So every Friday in May, we're going to be talking about a various different aspect around supporting mental health in the workplace. But I want to tee it up by saying, when you're working with vendors, man, oh man, oh man, protect your peace. Okay. By that, I mean, yes, there can be a ton of hoops to jump through. But breathe through it. It's so easy to get upset, right? And to think, why are we jumping through this hoop? This doesn't make any sense. This is not applicable to what I'm trying to do. I just want to bring in one, training vendor for, one 90-minute workshop. Why are we going through all this? It very well may be worth it in the end, but you absolutely have to really take a step back, think of objectively about the goal that you're trying to achieve, and make sure that you're quite literally breathing through it, right? So be prepared with having that spiel ready in order to sell your idea, in order to sell the fact that here's the problem and here's why I think this person, this vendor, this company is the answer to our problem or could help us progress towards success. Write that out, write that down, and just have that ready, because you're going to have to repeat it probably at least 2 or 3 times at minimum. So have it ready in written form, because you're probably going to have to email it, and you're probably going to have to pick up the phone and say it. So that will help you. It definitely, and it's advice that I wish I had told myself, years ago, because I was very often I've been on both sides of this fence. Very often that person that's like, oh man, we need to bring that speaker in, or oh man, we need to work with that company, and really framing it from a business perspective, having your business objective ready to go, and why that company or that person is the solution would have been helpful to me again years ago. And then conversely, I'm on the other side where I am that person that is that organizations or that one individual sees me talk, they want to bring me in. But we've got to go through the hoops and the jumps, right? So I can help educate them sometimes through their own process, because I've been there. But not everybody has. So hopefully this session will be good in terms of bringing awareness to the fact that this is truly a barrier for small businesses and for minority companies. Absolutely. But if we're working together, we can get creative on how to bring small business dollars and bring business to, again, solopreneurs or those that own their own company with just a couple of helpers, 1 or 2 people. And then lastly, around protecting your peace, to my entrepreneurs out there, I want to say you have to really think about it. Yes, it would be great to go after the big fish, the big whale, right, in your town or in your industry. It'd be awesome to go for the top. In my case, yes, I would love for Microsoft and Google and Facebook and every other tech company to come knocking down my door saying, how can we help more Black women get into the C-suite? Yes, that would be ideal. But until that happens, okay, you have to take a step back and think, okay, what are some smaller or mid-sized organizations that I can work with? And it might be multiple of those versus just that one, what we call whale or big fish, right, to go after. that could set you up. But take a step back and really thinking about, okay, again, smaller, mid-sized organizations that I can work with, multiple of those in order to still hit my revenue goals. Okay, so again, back to protecting your peace. That will help you a little bit with anxiety, and your marketing and everything else will just come along with marketing towards those organizations and those companies. Okay. All right. So with that, I am super, super, super excited to get May kicked off. So please mark your calendars for next Friday, 12:30 Eastern. And I will be on wherever you are seeing me stream: YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn Live. All right. Take care, all. Bye, and have a happy, blessed weekend.